Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Let me see. Who I think I saw. Oh, Craig was in here way earlier. That's hilarious. Well, Craig, if you're still here, thank you for joining us super duper early. Um, so it's been some time since I last did a stream. I've been like work was really crazy, Christmas was really crazy. So I think I haven't been able to see you guys in almost about 5 days, I think. Um, which is a little bit more than normal now because I have my whole new schedule figured out and I'm trying to stream more often. So, um, really glad to be back though. I know that I've been kind of quiet the last few days too because while at work it's been like I've been getting out of work late and then I come home late and then I've been super tired so I crash and then I don't get to talk with people because as most of you know already I tend to like socialize with a lot of people and like in the other streams and the chat rooms and stuff like that. So just these last 5 days have been really hectic. Um, hanging out with family, dealing with work stuff, some personal stuff here and there. So it's been pretty wild, but I think everything's fine. Here we are for this stream. I was actually even debating whether or not I wanted to do two streams today just to kind of like catch up, but right now I'm just kind of going with the idea that I'm here to do one to start with, and we'll see what happens. So I wanted to finally finish off the cube, so that's why we're here today. I thought it would make a lot of sense to kind of do the last stream about my cube today, one day, because tomorrow's New Year's Eve, and I kind of wanted to like finish off the year with like all my cube videos being done. I felt like that was kind of I don't know when I was thinking about it because I was thinking about like what kind of stream I wanted to do today, and I was like I feel like that I should finish the year off with my last cube stream, not drag it into the next year. And I don't know why I felt that way, but I'm kind of glad that I'm doing that. So that's what I'm deciding to do. Um, and we're going to do the last set, which is the land base, which you guys can see right here. And this is going to be a little bit different because normally when I've done these streams I will hey Eduardo, Mr. Galindo, good to see you, dude. It's been a while since I've seen you, man. And Pink Peacock in the house. Hello. Thank you too for so much for being here. You guys rock. Um I was just going to say that normally when I do my land base, normally when I do the cube, I kind of slow roll it like I talk about each individual card. The lands are a little different because some of them I have some memories and some really interesting plays tied to, but most of them are just kind of like cycles and they don't really stand out a lot because they're just kind of like mana fixing you mostly. There are a few lands that I will carefully go over simply because they're way more complicated than just simply mana fixing. But what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to go in sets in the sense that like I like you'll notice that like a lot of the lands kind of have like I'll have like 5 that are all part of a cycle and then I'll have 10 that are all part of a cycle. So like if I kind of explain one particular kind of land um that are all part of a cycle, then you get the idea of what pretty much most of the other ones do. There's only a few that are not quite like that, but you guys will get the general idea. So I'll probably go through the land base pretty quickly, and then I feel like maybe I'll probably have enough time to kind of go over the basic lands as well, just for fun, just for fun. Like they're not special. Well, I mean they are kind of special because most of them are full art, so I kind of like to show them off a little bit. But other than that, they don't have any specific specialty to them. So I'll just kind of show them off a little bit, and maybe we'll talk about them and have a little fun. So, and I think that also going through the land base is not going to take the full hour. So we'll also kind of chat about Cube, and we can talk Magic about a few different things. We can talk about playing Cube, building Cube, whatever. So yeah. Another thing that's really interesting is I got to play a cube match on what was it? It wasn't the day after Christmas. I think it was not the 26th, but I think it was the 27th. I met up with my best friend and actually went over to his house to play Cube. Normally, Cube matches happen at my house, but we went to his place. And I got to meet his brother, and he was a really cool, interesting guy. And apparently, he was debating about whether or not he wants to build a cube. And so my best friend actually wanted me to come over and bring my cube and play cube games, just to kind of encourage his brother to actually build a cube. Mr. Lash, what's up, dude? I just wanted to let you know I came up with some really cool ideas for the special project. I'm about to actually start working on it. That's something I'm going to be doing this week. So I just don't want you to think that I'm not working on it. It's just that the particular project that you and me are doing is a lot of work. And I've been conceiving all sorts of different ideas of how I want to do it. So I promise you I'm working on it. I'm hopefully going to get it all figured out and set up and beginning to work on it this next month in January. So I promise you I'm working hard on it. I haven't forgotten, buddy. I've been doing an insane amount of brainstorming on it. So yeah, keep in mind, contact me. I don't remember if you added me on Discord, but contact me on Discord if you can. And we'll talk a bit more about it too. So anyways, back to what I was talking about. I played a game with my friend's brother, and we played Cube, and it blew him away. We had so much fun, and he was like not expecting everything to be, because like I think he was kind of expecting it more to be a draft style, and I don't really do draft style, so he was really blown away by it, and had some really cool cards. And we played about 2 games total, because our games go on for hours and hours. I think each game lasted about oh god, because I was there for a long time, so I think each game was about 3, maybe 4 hours, because you got to understand, with my cube it goes on for bloody ever. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were drinking and smoking and having a good time and playing cards, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of silliness, and I really hope that he's out there conceiving his cube, because that was one of the main reasons, and he was definitely a lot more interested in it because of it. So let me stop wasting time. It was just something interesting that kind of happened over the few days that I was gone. Let's get into land base. So the thing is that the way that my cube is built, color fixing is really important. And you'll notice that most of the lands, I actually have some lands that do cool things that are not in my cube, because color fixing is so much more important in this cube based on how it's played and how it's built. Because, you're generally playing about 3 colors at a time, 2 if you're really lucky, and nobody plays 4 or more. So, I mean, generally when people are playing 3 colors, things get pretty intensive on the mana cost. So, color is super important. So you guys are going to see a lot of really heavy color fixing lands. And those are usually the most highly sought after in the cube. And they usually also, based on when you select your piles and go through them all and sort them all, you kind of look through your lands first, after you've sorted them all. And you kind of figure out what your lands are pushing you to, because your lands will tell you what you're allowing to happen in your in the deck that you're going to play, the constructed deck you're going to play. So I kind of round it out and look through all the lands first. So the lands are actually the most important part of the cube, because they define how everybody's going to play. That's not always true, but it usually goes that direction. So I'm going to start pulling these lands aside. So the first set that I want to get into are actually, they are the, I only have 4, and they're all part of a cycle. So the original versions of these lands are from Future Sight, and I don't have the whole collection. I'm only missing one of them. I'll go through these carefully. I'll kind of slow roll these ones, because they all do different things, and they're all very interesting lands. So the first one I have here is the Nimbus Maze. So let me kind of get it to zoom in a little bit. Nimbus Maze is a non-basic land. It says add a generic mana to your mana pool, or add a white to your mana pool. You may only activate this ability if you control an island. And add a blue to your mana pool. You may only activate this as long as you control a plains. Um, it's a good land. Like, I mean, the main attractiveness of this particular land is that it comes out untapped and it can make white or blue. And I mean, obviously you have to meet the conditions of running an island or running a plains, but usually like that's not this huge deal. Like I've never seen it become a major problem. And even if it's not producing white and blue, at least it's producing something, like it's producing generic mana. So it's a land that comes out untapped, and you can use it for generic if things are not going your way, which is very uncommon, or you're producing white or blue, or both, you know? And that makes this card awesome. Like, lands that can produce multiple colors and come out untapped are always really strong. So this land is very good. It's a very strong land. The next one in the cycle that I have is River of Tears. So this one is such an interesting land. In fact, it actually makes you think a lot harder than any of the other lands from this cycle. So River of Tears is a non-basic land that says add a blue to your tap. You may add a blue to your mana pool. If you played a land this turn, you may add a black to your mana pool instead. So this thing, like, this is what I tell people is that, like, because some people get confused about how this land works, like they lose track of it. Like they think it produces blue when in actuality it produces black, and it'll produce black when people think it produces blue. So one of the best ways to think about this card is like, and this is how I tell people to streamline it, is most of the time, if it's your turn, it produces black. If it's your opponent's turn, it produces blue. Now, obviously, like, that's not always true because you're not always, like, putting a land down every turn. But the idea is that generally, if you are putting a land down every single turn, like, then this will always produce black. But the idea is that what makes this really creative is that it's black on your turn when you need it, right? But it's blue on your opponent's turn, which means it can be used for counter spells and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of like tell people that, you know, the best way to think of it is that it's blue on your opponent's turn. Because that's when you'll generally need the blue mana. And that's actually what makes this card so good, is that, like, it's, like, a lot of the time, like, if you're playing a blue reactive deck, this is going to always produce blue for you when you need it to be reactive. And that's what makes this really nice. Like, I actually like this land a lot. And like I said, if you train yourself to kind of look at it as black during my turn, blue during the opponent's turn, it makes it a lot easier to keep track of what kind of mana it's going to produce. So, because otherwise people get tripped up over that. It kind of confuses them a little bit. Next is the Graven Carns. So this is a non-basic land that produces generic mana, or you can pay a red or black and tap it to produce double black, double red, or a black and red to your mana pool instead. So, like, this land's pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I see it used more for generic mana than producing double mana. And it's like, I don't know. Nothing too amazing about this land. I mean, it's nice. Like, it kind of like works like a free Rakdos Signet almost. Like, you lay this down for free, and it acts like a Rakdos Signet, and Rakdos Signet's pretty good. Like, all the Signets are pretty good. So, I mean, I just feel like that a lot of the time it gets used for generic mana, and that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. Like, nothing too amazing about that card. This next one is pretty impressive. This is Horizon Canopy. So, some of you guys might know this card pretty well. It's kind of the most expensive of the whole set. I own two of these. This is the one that's in the cube. The other one is elsewhere. And it says you may tap it to pay a life and produce green or white to your mana pool. Or you may pay one and sacrifice Horizon Canopy, draw a card. This is another one of those situations where the reason why this card is so amazing is because it comes out untapped and it produces green or white when you need it, like right away. Which is awesome. And yeah, you pay a life to do it, but it's always worth it. Like, when you really need that color and you need it from a land that can produce either, and like you don't like care about the loss of life, this card's amazing. And the drawing card ability is what really sells this card. Like that's what people absolutely love about this card. Like it mana fixes you for little to no cost, and then it also draws your draws you cards when you don't need it anymore. So this land is pretty damn spectacular. Most people know also that in the most recent Modern Horizons set that came out, they made a whole cycle of these. They basically recreated this entire card. This is the original. Well, this isn't the one from Future Sight, but this is the reprint from Iconic Masters. And in Modern Horizons, they reprinted this card again and then made, I think it was like they made 4 more for the other allied colors. And then just basically made them have all the exact same abilities, with the only difference being the color costs. So this is a great land. And sadly, it's the last that I have of this cycle. These all originally were printed in Future Sight. And Nimbus Maze, River of Tears, the Graven Cairns, and also the Horizon Canopy. So these were all originally printed in Future Sight, and they were beautiful in Future Sight, by the way. They had beautiful art, and they also had the Future Sight borders, which look really cool, especially on the lands. And I don't have the original prints of those, and I think that getting original prints, like from Future Sight, of these lands in particular is pretty expensive. I actually opened these all up in Iconic Masters. For anybody who doesn't know, I actually bought a... Well, I didn't actually buy it with my own money. My sister sent me a gift card, and I bought a box of Iconic Masters with the gift card she sent me. So I opened up a whole box of Iconic Masters, and I pulled out all of these, and I actually pulled 2 Horizon Canopies from that box. So, but I only pulled 1 of each of these. And the only one I'm missing is Grove of the Burn Willows. So that's one that I really want to get. If I can ever get my hands on it, I will probably put it in my set of non-basic lands. But I don't have it, and I'm not really, like, I think it's kind of expensive, so I'm not really interested in trying to buy it. But I keep an eye out for it. I kind of, like, look it up every once in a while. So, I went over those real carefully because they all do very different things. Like, I'll go through piles, like, we're about to go into the next cycle of lands that are, like, a bunch of them. So, and I won't get too descriptive with them because once you know one of them, you know all of them. These ones were special because they all do different things. So I'll set these guys aside. And the next set is actually the set that Bo Falcon, who sadly I don't think he's here, Bo Falcon sent me these. So these are all of the Vivid lands. So I have here Vivid Grove, Vivid Meadow, Vivid Marsh, Vivid Crag, and Vivid Creek. So let me go ahead and just bring up one of them. Because once we read off what they do, like one of them does, we'll know the whole set. So this is Vivid Meadow. They all have really beautiful art too. I really like the... Well, I'll talk about the art in just a second. Let me just explain what it does. So Vivid Meadow is a non-basic land, and it says it comes into play tapped, which is like the one downside to the Vivid cards. But it comes into play with 2 charge counters, and it taps regularly for a white mana, or you can tap it and remove a charge counter from Vivid Meadow to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So each of the Vivid cards does exactly, like each of the Vivid lands all basically say the same thing, with the only difference being the color. So like you can kind of see, like right away, that like they all kind of are basically the same thing pretty much. So I added these, Bo Falcon sent these out to me, and I loved them, and I wanted to put them in immediately, so I did. I made room for them. And we play tested them for the first time. I told you guys a few days ago I went to my friend's house and we played with his brother. And basically we all got these lands and we all got to utilize them. And I was so happy to find that these lands were perfect. They were exactly what the cube needed. The main thing is that the charge counter that makes mana of any color is like a big deal. Making, like, the major thing is color fixing. It's such a big deal in the cube. And any kind of lands that can make any color of mana are this big freaking deal. Now, there's only a couple of conditions where it doesn't work. I can actually think of one that a land that used to be in here that I took out because it never worked is I used to have a copy in the cube of Ancient Ziggurat. And Ancient Ziggurat is a land that comes into play untapped, and it says you may add a mana to your mana pool of any color, but you can only use that mana to cast creature spells. And I ended up taking that land out because that restriction about only using it on creature spells was a lot more restrictive than you think. It would often feel bad not being able to use the land, and like there's so many different kinds of spells happening. Like yeah, sure, there's lots of creatures, but not being able to use mana of any color to like do like all sorts of fun spells. Like there's lots of fun enchantments, there's really powerful instants and sorceries, there's artifacts and stuff like that. And I guess artifacts don't matter as much because they're not as color. Like there's a few color intensive artifacts I have, but it's just that like having like type restrictions on mana of any color, you actually feel that impact, and it kind of sucks. So I ended up taking it out. But cards like these where, like for example, the restriction on these cards is that they come into play tapped. But once they're untapped and you can use them like 2 turns in a row to make mana of any color, and then even after that there's still lands that still produce some kind of color, these get utilized really well. Like, I actually saw, like I said, me, my friend, and his brother, we all managed to get at least one of these out on our side of the table during, the 2 games that we played. And they always worked great. And the fact that they came into play tapped didn't even feel like that big of a problem. Like, it really didn't. So these cards are great. I'm glad I put them in. And by the way, their art is absolutely beautiful. Like, one of the things I love is the whole, like, serene kind of art they have to them, along with every single one of them has a rainbow in it, which is, like, so beautiful. Like, the way that they did it, like, they made every single one of the lands look really peaceful and quiet and nice, and the whole rainbow thing going on. I like the rainbow effect because it's like it represents the fact that you can create mana of any color, Like, that's a really cool thing. Like, the rainbow up here in the peaceful looking forest. And like, I like this one a lot. The rainbow reflection in the swampy water is such a really cool effect because like all the other ones seem to have like an actual rainbow presence, and this is just like murky, oily water, but it creates a rainbow effect, which is really cool. I like that a lot. And then this one's really interesting because the rainbow is like these weird little like light streams coming in. Like you can see these weird like streaks of light coming in, and they're all rainbows. It's really weird, but I like it a lot. Craig, I saw you. I pointed out when I first started the stream that I noticed you were the first person in here. But welcome back and thanks for joining us, man. And then the Vivid Creek is so beautiful. I love it when they do these really, nice, like, arts for islands. Like, you can see the little rainbow coming in off the mist, and I really like that stuff. It's nice. Like, so I'm really happy that I got to get these lands in here. They're very nice. So the next is a cycle of 5 as well. So these are all the triple lands from the Alara block. And they basically make 1 mana of they make 1 mana of any color. What am I saying? They make 1 mana of 3 different colors, which are attributed to whatever like side of the 3, like whatever side they relate to. So like there's Esper, Nea, Jund, Grixis, and Bant. So they basically made like, and they all come into play tap like the Vivid lands also, but they create mana that are related to the colors that they're aligned with. And these lands are great. They work a lot, like I said, like I've actually played with these for a long time. They've been in the cube for a long time. And they work great. They work just like playing with the Vivid lands, which is like they're almost always like you're going to probably be playing the colors that they align with, or otherwise you might not include them, or maybe you're just playing double. You never know. But they almost always work great because it's like they produce like white, blue, and black, or red, green, and black, like, or whatever. So they're wonderful lands. So I'll just kind of like show them off really quick. This one's and I love the art for them too. They have great art. This one is Arcane Sanctum, very nice art, and comes into play tapped, produces white, blue, and black. This one is the Crumbling Necropolis. I love the art on this one. I love it. The art on this card is so absolutely horrifying and gruesome. It's amazing. It's just, I love it. It looks absolutely terrible. But that's what makes it so great, in the sense, like, it doesn't look terrible as art. It looks terrible to, like, be there. You know what I mean? It's so gruesome. There's blood everywhere, and there's a decapitated body over here, and there's a hanging zombie up here, and the buildings are on fire. It's like, ugh, I love it. So it makes blue, black, and red. And this is Seaside Citadel, which is very pretty. I always like the art of the sunset and sunrise skies and the oceans and stuff like that for the band stuff. It's very pretty. So this makes green, white, and blue. And this is Savage Lands. I would say this is probably my least favorite of the art because it's, I don't know, it's hard to see what's going on. Like, you can see smoke and you can see fire, and that's it. Like, there's not a whole lot else to really see in this card, but that's okay. Makes black, red, and green. Very, it's a good land. I just don't like the art very much. And then the last one is Jungle Shrine, which is, I like this art. I don't think I like it as much as the other ones, but it's pretty good. And it's red, green, and white. Yeah, it's the one for Naya, and yeah, these lands work great. Like, they work like the Vivid lands. Like I said, there's not a whole lot to say about them. Like, these lands, like, it's one of those things where they're important and you need them, but they don't stand out. They're not cards that are like working to great effects, because all they're doing is fixing you. They're just fixing you, and that's not something you really think about that commonly, but it is good, and it is nice when you have them doing what you want them to do. Like I said, that's kind of why I'm not slow rolling these, because I don't have particular memories attributed to them, because it's like, oh, it made me a color once for doing something, And, like, they all get utilized so often that it's like, well, I can probably think of, like, every game I've ever played, and they've all helped me to do something big in the game. So it's like, it all just kind of meshes together. So the next set of 5 is, like I said, these are all cycles. So this is one I really like a lot. So these are the... they're originally printed in, like, M10, and they're all based on... like they're all allied colors, and they have, basically all the lands have a rule where it says they come into play tapped unless you control like one of the 2 basic colors that it makes as a land. So, like, and these cards are great because most people get them into play untapped, which is an amazing feeling. So, like, this one is Sun Petal Grove, and it says it comes into play tapped unless you control a forest or a plains. And it just makes white and green. This one's from M13, and it's great. Like, they're all great. They're all great cards. Here's Dragon Skull Summit. Same stipulation, but for swamps and mountains. This is a foil Glacial Fortress. I cracked this open in M10 a long time ago. I actually own, like, 3 of these 5 lands are foil, and they're all just, we cracked them in packs. Like, it's awesome like that. So yeah, this is the Glacial Fortress. Same thing for Island and Plains. Clay! What's up, dude? How you doing? Just going over the land base, my friend. This is a foil Drowned Catacomb. And it's got the same ruling for islands and swamps. Pretty nice. One of the things that I wanted to point out that I love about this card that, like, most people miss because it's such a teeny tiny weird little detail. If you look right about, I think it's, where is it? I gotta zoom in here. Where is it? It's there. You just gotta, hold on a second. If I can get it to zoom. There it is. Okay, can you guys see the teeny tiny little boat? The little boat guy? He's right there. See the little red light and, like, the little boat and, like, the face on it, like the guy on the boat? I don't know why. I always like that about this card. Like, cause, like, there's a lot of stuff, like this is not a really impressive piece of art, but I always feel kind of like a little bit of joy when I see that little teeny tiny guy on the little teeny tiny boat way off in the background over there. I don't know. I always liked it. So, but yeah, it's a foil, blue and black, pretty big deal, and it does what it needs to do. And then this is a foil rootbound crag from Ixalan, and I like it with the little dinosaur. I mean, I'll admit, I actually really like the original art from like the M10 setup for the Rootbound Crag, but I kind of like it with the little dinosaur. It's kind of cool. So, and same rules with the mountain and forest. So these lands are awesome. Like they're a great cycle to have, and yeah, I mean they're strong. Like I mean, most people get them out without having them tapped. So it's a great feeling. Moving on. Okay, so this is one of the big sets. So I'm about to get into, like, so I showed you guys, like, I had, like, the 4 of, like, the cycle, even though I want 5 of them. And then I went through the multiple cycles that were all sets of 5. This is a cycle of lands that is a set of 10. And you'll understand what they are once I show them. So these are, all 10 of these are the Ravnica double lands. For anybody who doesn't know what the Ravnica double lands are, so let me get the pretty one. There's a pretty one in here. I have a foil one. I'll put that one on top. So the Ravnica double lands they enter the battlefield tapped, which is like the major downside to them. Craig wants to know if we can plump the buns. I said it. I said the words. I said the magic words. Plump those buns, boys. Plump those buns, boys. Hey, Bo Falcon! Dude, good to see you, dude. I actually went over the Vivid cards. I'm gonna put those back in the spotlight just for Bo. Because I got to talk about them a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. Check it out, dude. There they all are. I just went over them. All 5 of them are in the cube, hanging out. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Glad you're in here, buddy. So anyways, I'm doing the Ravnica double lands. I have all 10 of them here, so like every single color combination, every single guild, they're all here. And basically all of them come into play tapped. And then it says when whatever the double land is comes into the battlefield, you must return a land you control to its owner's hand. And then when you tap them, they make 2 of the aligned color combinations. So like it'll make a red and green, it'll make a white and black, it'll make a white and green, it'll make a white and blue, it'll make blue and black, black and green, green and blue, blue and red, black and red, white and red. So I think that's all 10 of them. And they all basically do the same thing other than the color combination, obviously. These lands are a big deal. They are such a big deal in the cube. Like I would say that out of all the lands in the entire collection, like the other cycle of 10 actually also really matters, but these make a huge deal because like do not doubt like the ability to make 2 mana of like the colors that you need. It's such a big deal, and 9 times out of 10 when people are using land destruction, they go for these. They will always go for these. Like, you know, you see like a bunch of really strong lands, and like you're like, okay, like I can blow up a land. Who's playing the double lands? And then they'll just blow up the double lands. And it's a big deal because like when the double lands go, like it hurts. Like it really hurts when these get blown up. So I only have the 1 foil. I don't have any of the other ones. And to be totally honest, I'm not really the biggest fan of the artwork on these lands. I mean, I like a couple of them a little bit, but like I like the ones that look like churches, like the Basilica looks like a church, the Sanctuary looks like a church, the Chancery looks like a church. Like I like those ones, but like I've never been a big fan of the Ravnica like landscape. Like I don't know, I've just never liked the whole the city feeling. I don't like it. Like it's like I want it, like, I mean, and I know that, like, Ravnica is, like, a really popular, like, plane go to for Magic, but I really just am not a fan of like all the city stuff. Like I'm just not. That's not what I'm into. I'm not. I like the more like I like the beautiful landscapes because I was like, for example, talking about like the vivid cards, like the cycle of all the vivid lands, and I like those because they're really serene and peaceful and pretty to look at. Um, but the cityscapes not so much. Like I'm not super into that. That whole industrial appearance, it's not my thing. Let's see. Oh, Chris Gott, what's up, dude? What's up, man? How you doing, man? It's good to see you. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. Um, and if you're in a city, you get sick of buildings. Yeah, I definitely get that feeling, Pink Peacock. Like, I mean, it's just the whole, like, I don't know what it is. Like, there's, there's a couple of Ravnica lands that I can think of that I think are kind of good looking. Hey, Nathan, good to see you, dude. Thanks for coming in and kicking it, man. Wow, I got a bunch of you guys in here. You guys rock. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. But yeah, I'm not into the cityscapes. Like, there's a couple that look kind of cool, but like, it's just not my thing. Um, Fantasy environments are supposed to have cities, but not be cities. Yeah, I kind of agree with that, Nathan. Like, I like the idea of like townships and castles and like things like that, and like bustling metropolis in the sense of like, you know, like a fantasy, almost like medieval appearance, kind of. But I'm not into like the whole like I don't know, like Ravnica specifically, and Kaladesh too. Ravnica and Kaladesh, they really kind of like push themselves over the line with the whole cityscape to make it look way too modern. And it's like, well, it's, you know, it's like science fiction with like, you know, fantasy, like magic powers everything. And it's like, you know, it's not my thing. Like, you know, it's whatever. Um, Chris Gott delivering things in a snowstorm. Will you be safe out there, buddy? It's crazy. I actually have a snowstorm going on outside my apartment right now. I got a couple of warnings about it earlier today. Like there was I got a winter storm warning watch on my phone that was talking about like how crazy it was going to be today. And it was really funny because they're saying how it was going to be like crazy from like one particular period of time to another. And like at that period, it was like from like I got the warning at like I think like 7 a.m. or something like that, and they're like from 7 a.m. until like 10, it's going to be a crazy storm. And like I look out my window and it's totally okay, and I'm like, what are they talking about? And then I think it was about noon where all the snow just suddenly started dumping, and I was like, oh, that's what they were talking about, like you know. Um, Oh, thanks, Bo Falcon, kind of bringing in the support. Where are the likes? Well, it's all good. You know, I know you guys like what I do, and whether you can show it by actually liking the video or not, it's all good. I know you guys are enjoying yourselves. um, I hope they don't do a cyberpunk set. Well, I mean, like there's been multiple things where they've already kind of done stuff like that. Like for example, like is Mirrodin a cyberpunk thing? Because like I would say Mirrodin is more mechanical than magical, you know? Like I would even say that Mirrodin is more mechanical oriented than magic oriented, whereas compared to like Kaladesh and Ravnica, you know, like but I like Mirrodin. Like I don't know, it's like the thing is like the whole like being in Mirrodin is more like even though it's more like mechanical oriented and stuff like that, they don't have like all the cities and things like that and all the modern stuff. It's like it's more like fantastic science fiction, whereas like Kaladesh and like Kaladesh and Ravnica are like this is modern life, you know, with technology. Oh yeah, and there's magic in there, and it's like, but I'm not like I live in modern life. Like I don't want to imagine a slightly better modern life. I want to literally go to another world when it comes to fantasy or science fiction, you know. So but I really like Mirrodin, so I don't know. I mean, I like New Phyrexia more than Mirrodin, but, you know, it's whatever. Um, yeah, it's been going on all day here, too. Like, well, I mean, I should say, you know, starting around, like, noonish, like 11 or noonish, the snowstorm's been crazy. Okay, so let me get into the next cycle of 10, and you guys will probably recognize these right away. So, they're all proxies, okay? I have a complete set of proxies of all of the dual lands. These are all proxied beta lands. Proxied beta dual lands. I have one of every single type. So, like, we have your bayou, your savanna, tundra, underground sea, tropical island, scrubland, volcanic island, plateau, badlands, and a taiga. So, these guys are a big deal. Who would have thought that, a land that is normally worth around multiple hundreds of dollars to even $1,000, who would have thought they would have been such a big deal in a cube or anything like that? These are a big deal. I mean, they are dual typed lands that produce dual colors, and they come into play untapped. That is the pinnacle of like land. Like, I mean, like there's some lands that are way stronger, sure, but these are the pinnacle, man. Like, I mean, you get so much out of these, and I can definitely think like, even though most of the lands kind of are obscured in games, I can definitely think of multiple times where I've seen these lands come out like in the first few turns, and because they're multiple types and or multiple colors, they make a big impact on like the game in just the first couple of turns. Dual lands are not to be trifled with. Like they're like, I mean, there are lots of people like the classic like days of like old school playing where people are like, well, it's just a forest and a swamp put together. How big of a deal can it make? It makes a big deal. Like it makes to put it absolutely plainly. The dual lands make a major impact, and you feel their presence like right away because they allow for so many things to happen within the first couple of turns that would otherwise not be possible if you only had access to just a singular color of that kind. Um, but these are awesome. I love all the proxies. I actually own one dual land, one real dual land. None of them, obviously, it's all these are proxies, and the one dual land I own is not in my cube because I try to take very good care of it, and it's already screwed up a lot because I've owned it for a long time and it's seen a lot. I own one revised Badland. That's it. That's the only dual land I own. I got it a long, long time ago from a very close friend of mine, and it's bent. It's bent up. It's got like, I think it's got like a bent corner, and it's got like a seam on the side of it. So it's a screwed up card. It's probably not worth very much, but because it's all bent up and screwed up, and it's got some play damage and all that. But I like it, and I own it, and it's in my collection, and I don't have it in my cube because why bother when you have, a proxy beta scrubland, Like, it's like, why bother? So, I mean, I am cool enough to actually own one actual dual land that is real, but all of these are all fakes, but they're great. They're great fakes. I always love to say this about proxies. They play like the real thing. Who would have thought, right? So yeah, the dual lands are great. Definitely play with them because they are fantastic for they are fantastic in Magic. Like, especially in Cube, they color fix amazingly. They do all the things that the dual lands should do, and you can really feel their power when you play Cube. Like, I mean, there you can put them in, like, obviously, like, people will put them in vintage decks or legacy decks and whatever they have available to them to put them in, and it's kind of cool if you have multiple copies, blah 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 blah. But like, when you play with them in a cube, you get to really feel like what that raw power is like. Like, only the fact that there's like the whole cube is singleton, and you only have access to one of whatever kind it is. And when you get it, like, and in your hand, or you draw it later or whatever, and you play it, it feels amazing to play a dual land. It feels so good because it's like, out of like all the lands you could have drawn, you managed to get a land that comes into play untapped, counts as both basic land types, and also produces one, like, a mana of like whatever those two basic types are. It's amazing. They feel absolutely spectacular. So highly recommend, like, if you build a cube, I highly recommend getting dual lands for it. But it might be easier to just get yourself some proxies like I did, because, saying, oh, you should build a cube and put, like, the dual lands into it, that's, asking a lot. So it just kind of depends whatever works for you guys if you're trying to build a cube. So the next cycle I'm going to do is a special cycle. It's only 3 cards, and these 3 cards are, I kind of put them in the cube with the idea of, like, these lands belong together, and they kind of do their own thing, and, like, they're basically their own weird little cycle, even though they're technically not. So these are what I call the Black Devotion lands. So I'll kind of slow roll them, but these lands are all about black, and that's all they care about. So we have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. This is an original copy from Planar Chaos. And Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth is a legendary non-basic land that says each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. Amazing. This card is so amazing. It's so ridiculous, especially in Cube. This land is so ridiculous, like, I can't even begin to, like, really explain. Like, this is one of those lands where it hits the board and the entire game changes. Like, unlike all the other lands, which are all about specifically mana fixing, this is one of those lands where, like, it changes the environment of the game so much that you can distinctly remember, like, it being in play and how it affects everything. When this land hits the battlefield, it turns every land into a swamp in addition to whatever it is. So, like, everything is black. Like, your opponent's lands are black. Your lands are black. Everything is black. And it's amazing. It's so amazing. I have had multiple games where my opponents will play this land, and this land will mana fix me more than it mana fixes my opponent. It's weird. And it's awesome. So, yeah, and that's my favorite thing, is when this land comes out and it mana fixes me. Like, it's so great. Because, and the thing is, like, yeah, like, turning things into swamps in addition to whatever else they are is a great feeling. So, yeah, like, it's just really strong. So the next one, which Thoth has already mentioned, and by the way, hi Thoth, I don't know if I said hi to you, dude. Welcome to the stream. So the next one is Cable Coffers. So this one so first of all, I gotta say, Cable Coffers, sadly, is worth a small fortune. This is an actual copy that I own. It's from the Plane Chase dual decks that came out, like the Plane Chase decks. And it's so incredibly strong. It says you pay 2. It's a non-basic land that says pay 2 mana, tap, add a black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. So this card is insane with Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. You play Tomb of Yawgmoth, and you get the Cable Coffers out, and then you just make an assload of black mana. Like, I mean, I don't know what else to say. You just make a fuck ton of black mana. It's strong. It's really strong. It's like getting Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Cable Coffers out at the same time is, like, the chances of it happening are slim to none. I've never seen it happen. I've never once seen it happen. It'd be cool to see at least once, but I've never seen it happen yet. So, but someday I dream that someday Cable Coffers and Urborg will be out at the same time. This card, for anybody who can tell, it's battered to shit. It's got a lot of heavy play damage. It's bent up a little bit. It's got some scratch marks here on the side. You can see that, like, white streak right there. That's definitely a wear and tear on the card. If I remember correctly, the back side of this card is even more screwed up. This card was heavily played without a sleeve for a very, very long time. And I only recently found out that this card is worth a lot of money. Like, I want to say within the last year or so, I found out this card is very expensive to get. Which makes me sad that it's so bent out of shape and has all these scratch marks and stuff like that. But I'm okay with it, because it's playable in the cube, And because it's double sleeved, you can't feel any of the bend marks and you can't feel any of the scratches. So, I mean, it's bent to shit. It's got heavy play damage, but it works. It does what you want it to. It does what you want it to do. So, yeah, it's awesome. And then the last card that's part of this 3-card cycle is Lake of the Dead. This is a real Lake of the Dead. I bought it special for my cube. This is not something that's been in my collection forever. I literally went out of my way to buy this specifically to put it in my cube. It's real, and I don't think it's worth a lot, but it's nice to have. It's original print, and I'm sure it'll go up eventually. Like, I mean, Lake of the Dead is awesome. It's got some minor play damage, but not a huge deal. I knew that it had play damage when I bought it, and I'm okay with it, so it's whatever. Lake of the Dead is a non-basic land that says when it comes into play, sacrifice a swamp or bury Lake of the Dead. Tap to add a black to your mana pool. Tap and sacrifice a swamp to add 4 black to your mana pool. So, like, this is the whole deal, is Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth comes out, everything is a swamp. Cable Coffers comes out, and everything, like it can make a ton of mana. And then you can also sacrifice your swamps to, like, make 4 mana. So, like, you can tap a swamp for a black, and then tap your Lake of the Dead, sacrifice the swamp, and make 4 more black. It's pretty awesome. Like, these cards are pretty gross together. And that's all based on assumption because, like I said, I've never seen all 3 of these lands hit the battlefield at the same time. I have a joke in my cube about these lands that nobody has ever done, but I dream that someday I will be able to do it. The joke is that if you get all 3 of these lands together, like if you, get your piles and you go through your non-basic lands, and you see that you get all 3 of these, Urborg, Cable, and Lake, you have to play mono black. That's the joke I have, is that if you play this and you play mono black. So maybe someday, but I've never seen it happen. But I can dream. It could happen. You never know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe someday I'll be able to get all 3 of those, and if I do, I'll be sure to tell everybody about it. I'll come out on camera and I'll be like, I played mono black with all 3 of the non-basic lands that needed Lake of the Dead, Cable Coffers, and Urborg, and it was amazing. I don't know. Could be fun. So now I'm going to go through a bunch of lands. These ones I'm going to have to actually slow roll because they're all very different from one another. So I guess I'm just going to kind of start slow rolling. Like, I kind of did all the cycles, and we got through them. So let's just kind of start going through this stuff and having a good time here. So next one is Scorched Ruins. So I have actually owned this land for a very long time. I told you guys the story about the guy who gave me a whole bunch of free cards, and I told you guys about the Mana Vault and all that stuff that I got from that guy. That guy gave me this land as well. There wasn't really anything super special about it, like he didn't carefully explain it to me or anything. I don't think he needed to, but this land is very cool and it's very strong. Scorched Ruins says, when Scorched Ruins... Come on. Focus. 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 Come on. There we go. It says, when Scorched Ruins comes into play, sacrifice 2 untapped lands or bury Scorched Ruins. Tap to add 4 colorless mana to your mana pool. So I love this card. But it's really interesting. Like, I always say that it's interesting to see people play this card because some people think it's amazing and some people will never use it. I always use it, but my best friend never uses it. And he actually has a hard time playing this because he says he doesn't like the fact that it's colorless mana, it's not colored. I never see it as a big deal because it's 4 mana. Like, it's 4 colorless mana that you can use on anything. And it'll often, like, it's one of those things where it's big risk, like, high risk, high reward. But I don't know. I have a lot of fun with it, and I don't really like. I've seen people blow these up. Like I've seen people, use land removal spells to blow this up. But the thing is like I don't feel bad when like for example if I play this land, I don't feel bad when it gets blown up because that's what, land destruction is for. Land destruction is purposely for cards like this. Because if I get this out and I'm able to play with it and summon things using the mana, that's scary, man. Like, I mean, it's 4 colorless mana, and like, that's why you have land destruction. You have land destruction specifically for cards like that. So, like, yeah, like, it comes out and it gets blown up and you feel pretty terrible, but at the same time, like, if you get to use it and, like, mana accelerate to, like, 4 colorless mana and, cast spells off of it, how bad is your opponent feeling? Like, either it's one of those things where it's like either you feel bad because it gets blown up or your opponent feels bad because it doesn't get blown up. So no matter what way it goes down, somebody's going to feel bad. It's just interesting what like watching people choose whether or not they want to play this and kind of dictate whether or not like whether that person's the kind of person who thinks the reward is better than the risk or thinks that the risk is worse than the reward. And I'm a person that thinks that the reward of playing this is greater than the risk. And my best friend is a person who thinks that the risk is far worse than the reward. So it's almost like a psychology thing, Like I like to think that the cube is like this really interesting way of like studying Magic players because it's not so much about who has the most powerful cards. It's a lot more about like if every card is really powerful and every card has the potential to win you a game, then it's more about your skill as a player than it is about the power level of the cards. So it's like watching people play certain cards over other cards and like how they choose to play those cards. It tells you a lot about the person you're playing with, and it really pushes their skills as a Magic player. Like it's just interesting, and I'm really into that kind of stuff. It kind of gives you a chance to really get to know the people that you're playing Magic with a little better than playing like a standard deck, or even like if you're playing a commander deck with somebody like yeah, it's like a commander deck can define a person's personality, a constructed deck can define a person's personality, but I think that cube really tests people. It really, really tests people, and this is one of those cards that definitely kind of challenges people to think really hard about what they're about to do. Nathan says, unusual that they have to be untapped, right? Most sacrifice lands don't require that. I think that they were too scared of how powerful it was going to be. I think that's what they did. And I think that they when they reprinted the Lotus Veil or whatever, when not reprinted, but when they printed Lotus Veil, which has like hexproof on it or whatever, I think they force you to destroy 2 untapped lands as well. And I think it's just because the land is so strong. Like, I mean, it would feel like cheating if you were able to, like, still use the lands for mana right before you sacrifice them for an even more powerful land. So I think it's proper. I'm okay with it. It never bothers me that much. Hedron Archive loves that bit. My mono blue Ura, I assume that's Urza, EDH abuses it. Okay. Yeah, like, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. I actually want to get an Urza, but he's really expensive. But maybe someday I'll get my hands on one, and I will immediately throw him in the queue, because that's where he belongs. The next card is a Vesuva. I really like this card. I've had it for a long time. I cracked it in a Time Spiral booster many, many years ago. Love this card. So Vesuva is a non-basic land that says, as it comes into play, you may choose a land in play. If you do, Vesuva comes into play tapped as a copy of the chosen land. It's the land clone. Like, I mean, which is very, very strong. Like, I mean, what's better than a Cable Coffers? 2 Cable Coffers. What's better than Lake of the Dead? 2 Lakes of the Dead. What's better than 1 Bayou? 2 Bayous. You know, like, this card's great. It's Vesuva's amazing. it doesn't really, I'll be honest, it doesn't really change the game like what, like, for example, I was talking about Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth really, really impacts the game. This usually doesn't, but it can always accelerate you into some pretty silly stuff, which I've seen it do multiple times, which is awesome. Vesuva's a really good card. It's like, hey, you know that really crazy badass land that you only have a single of because the entire cube is singleton? Well, now you have two of them. Like, it's awesome. And I'm going to have some coffee. All right, Nathan, thank you so much for coming in and hanging out. You have a great night, dude. Thanks for kicking it. Cold coffee. All right. Next is a Volras Stronghold. This card is so strong. I kind of wish I had its two other counterparts, but I don't. So Volras Stronghold is a legendary non-basic land that says add one colorless mana to your mana pool, or pay 2, tap it, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Like I said, I really wish I had its two counterparts, I think it's Academy Ruins. And Academy Ruins is the same effect, but for artifacts with blue mana. And the other one, I think, is Shrine to Nykthos, I think, which is the same effect, but it's for enchantments, and it's white mana instead. All three of the cards are really, really strong. I think most people consider this one to be the best of all three of them, with like the blue one being second place and the white one being third place. This card's amazing. This card is so amazing. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that in the cube, there's not a lot of reanimation. Reanimation is very hard to come by, and most of it is in black. There's a little bit in white too, and a teeny tiny amount of it in green. So being able to recur cards off of a land like this is absolutely spectacular. It's positively insane. So this card definitely can make a big impact on the board sometimes, because it's like when you're not, it's like this card makes you much less afraid of removal. Like you put this out and you're just like, well, now I don't care about removal because I can just get everything back when I need it. And like, because like sometimes you have your game-winning creature and somebody Doomblades it, right? And you're like, well, I don't need to worry about drawing cards if I can just get that game-winning creature back. So you tap this for 2, and then like you tap and pay 2, and then you put that game-winning creature from your graveyard back on top of your library, and then you're just going to get to use it again next turn. Like, because you don't care about losing the draw, because you know that that one creature that was Doombladed is what's going to win you the game, and your opponent is now going to have to try and find a new answer for it. And you do all that at 2 mana, which is absolutely spectacular. So this card's amazing. It's very, very strong. Highly recommend playing with it. This is a proxy. We're getting into the proxies now. We're going to see a lot of proxies, guys. Library of Alexandria. Could you imagine if this was real? I would be so happy if I actually owned a real Library of Alexandria, but I don't. But I'm totally okay with playing a Library of Alexandria that's a proxy. I'm totally okay with that. That's fine by me. So this is a pretty complicated card. So it's a non-basic land that says tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, or tap to draw a card from your library. You may use the card drawing ability only if you have exactly 7 cards in your hand. So this card is obscenely powerful. It's obscenely powerful. It's terrible how powerful this card is. And, like, you would think sometimes that, like, the requirement of having 7 cards in your hand is, like, is, like, what makes this card not as great. It's still amazing. The amount, like, I've seen this card come out and be the reason why games are won so quickly. Like, obviously, like, it's not going to win a game, but, like, it will get you to your game-winning position way faster than you would expect. Like, I've seen people, like, the most brutal thing ever I've seen that this card, like, when this card really dominates, is when Library of Alexandria comes out on the first turn and then immediately draws you a card. Like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Um, I've seen this card draw cards every single turn and win somebody a game because they're able to draw a card, like an extra card every single turn. It's insane. Like, it's absolutely insane. And it's like, it's funny because, like, you can recognize that this card is extremely strong, but, like, you don't really realize how much it impacts. Like, you don't really totally realize how insanely strong this card is until you actually get a chance to play with it. And, like, I definitely remember feeling that way when I first got this proxy and put it in my cube, is I was like, oh yeah, it's going to draw you cards. Like, that seems pretty strong, that seems pretty good. And then, like, you play with it or you play against it, and you're like, oh my god, this card is broken. Like, you're like, oh my god, this card is broken. Like, it's obscene. It's absolutely obscene how powerful that card is. Bo Falcon says, I just checked, and yes, I do have an Academy Ruins. I can send it to you if you want, Habs. I don't use it. Bo Falcon, if you send me an Academy Ruins, I will be so ecstatic. I would love to own an Academy Ruins in for my cube. So if you want to send me that and you're totally cool, I would be very, very happy about it. Don't feel like you absolutely need to, but if you feel comfortable with sending that out to me, and, I would love to own one. So, you know what, Bo Falcon? Thank you so much. And I do hope that I can get that in the mail from you. For anybody who doesn't know, I have a fan mail P.O. box down in the description below. So you can go ahead and send me things if you so choose to, like the absolutely amazing and wonderful Bo Falcon. And he's sent me cards before, and a lot of the cards, like a good portion of the cards he sent me have actually made it into my cube. Like, I showed off all the Vivid lands, and I put them in the cube, and Bo Falcon, the Vivid lands you sent me are spectacular in the cube. We actually got to play test them for the first time a few days ago. Wonderful. Everybody got a chance to get one to play with, and everybody loved them. So thank you so much for sending me those Vivid lands. And you rock, Bo Falcon. Thank you so much. Dude, awesome. You rock, man. You rock. So moving on to the next proxy is Diamond Valley. Bo Falcon says, Hall of Heliod's Generosity is the enchantment land. That's okay. Don't even... Wait. I think that... I thought that it was a different card. Hold on, let me... I thought it was called Shrine to Nykthos. Are you sure? Let me look that up. Oh. I just got another weather warning. Probably a bigger storm coming in. I'm going to look that up really quick because I thought it was called something different. Hold on a second. I thought it was called Shrine to Nykthos. Shrine to... Let me try that. Let me see if I get it. Oh, no, Shrine to Nykthos is a different one. Okay. Shrine to Nyx? Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Yeah, but it's the wrong one. I thought it was... Let me see if the one that Bo was talking about is the one I'm thinking of, because I might have just mixed them up, which is what I'm thinking of now. Oh, they printed it in Modern Horizons? Was it printed before that? No, they actually only printed that in Modern Horizons. That is so weird. I legitimately thought that it was the Shrine to Nykthos, and I thought it was originally printed in, like, the old Theros set. But no, they printed it in Modern Horizons, and also, by the way, that like, let me just go ahead and kind of show it off. It's really strong. It's basically like the oops. It's basically the Volrath card, but with enchantments. And the Academy Ruins is the one for artifacts, which is also very strong. Um, oh, that's all right, Craig. It's all good. I actually mixed it up too, so it was partially my fault. So yeah, there. I would love to actually try and get my hands on like all three of them, and I would love to see them do like a whole set, like a green one and a red one as well. But I think it might be kind of tough trying to figure out what the other two would be. Um, Maybe like red. Well, green would probably be creatures, right? Would that be too strong? No, because black is creatures. So green would have to be like, maybe green could be lands. Dude, that might be too powerful. Maybe green could be lands, but I'm worried that would be too strong. And then red could be like, what would red be? Red could be instants, maybe? You think red would do instants or something like that? That might be kind of cool. Maybe if it did instants and sorceries, it would be too strong. So maybe if it was just instants, that would be a little more balanced. I don't know. It's definitely kind of interesting to think about, the idea that they could do a whole cycle of them. Anyways, so this is a proxy. This is Diamond Valley. And Diamond Valley is such a strong card. It doesn't make any mana, which is too bad. I've seen this thing make mana off of Urborg before, which is kind of cool. But all it does is it says, basically, tap to sacrifice one of your creatures in exchange for a number of life points equal to its toughness. Note that this ability may be used after blockers has been declared. This is a really interesting card. So first of all, sacrificing your creatures for life as a response to something is extremely useful. Now, most people used to utilize this a lot back in the day when damage went on the stack, and that was ridiculous. Because people would be able to block, deal damage through blockers, and then tap this and sacrifice for life. So you would basically, like, damage would still resolve, and then you would also gain life, even if your creature died. That was based on damage going on the stack way back in the day. That doesn't happen anymore. However, being able to sacrifice a creature for life points when you know for a fact it's going to die is still very, very strong. Because, like, it's like for example, like I have my big beefy game-winning creature out on the field, and somebody Doomblades it, and I'm like, well, somebody's going to Doomblade it. I can't, stop the Doomblade from happening. But what I can do is like let's say it's like a 6/6, and they're like, oh god, that 6/6 is going to kill me. Doomblade it, and I'll be like, well, I'm going to lose it no matter what I do. I guess I might as well sacrifice it for 6 life. Why not? I mean, you're getting something out of it. It's better than completely losing it, And it feels nice, like it does. Like I'll be honest. Sacrificing a creature in response to somebody removing it and gaining life is such a great feeling. It really is. It feels awesome. Sometimes also, like, if you're chump blocking with something, like somebody's coming in at you with a 6/6, and then you're like, well, I gotta block it, so maybe what I'll do is I'll block it, and, like, my little blocker is gonna be like a 1/1, so I'll block the 6/6 and not take any damage, but I'll also sacrifice my 1/1 blocker, and gain 1 life. I mean, I'm not going to kill the 6/6. I'm going to lose the 1/1 chump blocker. Might as well gain a life. Why not, So this land is cool. It's so cool. And, like, there are some shenanigans that you can do with it, but the majority of it is, like, just just sacrificing in compensation for something dying, which is pretty cool. It's a good feeling, and it's a good card, and even though it doesn't make mana, it has just the right amount of impact with its sacrificing ability that you don't mind the fact that it doesn't make mana. So the next one is the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. It's a proxy. It's a proxy, guys. So, let's see. Bo Falcon says the new Mystic Sanctuary from Throne of Eldraine ETBs one instant or sorcery conditionally, so you could use a bounce land with it, but can't use it indefinitely. That's interesting to know. Um, Mystic Sanctuary. I'll look that up later because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it sounds like it's pretty good. Um, I like all the lands with all the neat little effects. I like lands that kind of do things outside of just making mana. So, anyways, Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. This land is disgusting. It's disgusting. It makes people like want to barf. Like if it's used against me, I feel nauseated. When I use it against other people, like I laugh like an evil maniac, and other people feel nauseated. So this says all creatures. So this land makes no mana. And it says all creatures now require an upkeep cost of 1 in addition to any other upkeep costs they may have. If the upkeep cost for a creature is not paid, the creature is destroyed this way. This works wonders with indestructible creatures. It's really strong. Like, one of the best explanations I've ever seen of this card is it's a 0 mana enchantment. That can't be countered and can't be, destroyed except through land destruction. So, like, as long as you keep the idea that this is like a 0 mana enchantment, it feels so good playing it. I've seen this land played on the first turn. I've seen this land played tactically through later turns, when it's, like, actually a big deal. And it mana drains people, too, so, like, for example, like, you can play this on the first turn and it immediately feels oppressive. But I've also seen people where, like, somebody, like your opponent will have, like, a big board state with a whole bunch of creatures on it, and they only have just enough mana to, like, do what they want to do. And then you play this when they have, like, a huge board state, and then suddenly they have to, like, start making decisions of what they're okay with having and what they want to, like, get rid of. And they have to keep in mind, like, how much mana do they have, how big of an impact do their creatures have on the board state, like, what can be given up and what can be, kept. It makes people think a lot, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very, very strong. Very, very strong land. I love this card a lot. I actually wish I owned a real copy of it. Maybe someday I'll own a real copy of it, but I'm okay with playing with the proxy. It works just fine. It's not something that I'm, like, actively seeking because, I mean, it's so obscene. Like, that Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale is so obscenely expensive that I don't mind just having, like, this proxy. It's fine. Like, I'm okay with it. I kind of, in all honesty, I kind of prefer having the proxy rather than the real thing, because if I had the real thing, then I would probably want it cased up and put in a picture frame and hanging on a wall and never playing with it and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's better to have proxies because you are okay with playing with them because they're not real and they're not worth a fortune, I like that. So next is Maze of Ith. This is also a proxy. Like I said, the lands are where a lot of my proxies are because there's some really good lands in here. This land does not make any mana, and it says tap target attacking creature becomes untapped. This creature neither deals nor receives damage as a result of combat. You play this card and people stop attacking you. When I told you guys I played a game with my friend and his brother, I had a really funny moment where I played this land and I played Maze of Ith, and my best friend, who was sitting across from his brother, he was like, "Brother, he just played a Maze of Ith. Do you know what this means?" And his brother was like, "Yes, I know exactly what it means. It means I'm sending all my creatures at you instead of him." And it was so funny. I was laughing so hard when he said that. It was great. This land is really obscenely strong. It makes it so that people stop attacking you. The only way that people start attacking you again is if they have multiple options to be able to attack you with. But a lot of the time, this gets removed by land removal very commonly, or people try really hard to work around it, and it's hard. Like, I mean, there aren't 4 copies of them, which you don't really need, but having just a singular copy of Maze of Ith makes such a major impact that it's like it sometimes can completely keep you safe from any kind of like combat step for like a really long period of time. It's a great card. It's really strong. The next one is actually the brother of Maze of Ith, which is Mystifying Maze. Maze of Ith is so good that this is a worse version of Maze of Ith, and it's still a great card. So it's in the cube because it's strong. And also, unlike Maze of Ith, this actually produces generic mana, which is really nice. So you can tap it to add a generic mana to your mana pool, or you can pay 4, tap it, exile target attacking creature and opponent controls. At the beginning of the next end step, return it to the battlefield tapped unless under its owner's control. This card is it's like running Maze of Ith, and obviously you have to pay 4 to utilize its ability, but people don't really struggle with that. It's actually really nice. There are times where people have to make tough choices about whether or not they're going to whether or not they're going to play a spell or whether or not they're going to protect themselves for a turn using the Mystifying Maze. So it's a lot more strategic, but it's still really strong. Now, like I said, it's not Maze of Ith strong, but it's strong enough to be in the cube. And this is actually a card that I would recommend people playing with cube and other formats and things like that. Because it's a great card. It really is. I like the Mystifying Maze. Blue land needs 3 islands to ETB untapped. Oh, you're talking about the Mystic Sanctuary. Needs 3 islands to enter the battlefield untapped, and only then you can put an instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your... That sounds pretty strong, actually. I would probably play with that. Chris Gott says, if I had old school cards that were real, they'd be in a safety deposit box in my bank. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I actually own some pretty expensive cards that I take relatively good care of. Like I said, I'm not, like, framing them on my wall or anything, but, you know, I take alright care of them. Actually, you know what, guys? I'm sorry to do this. I have to use the bathroom, so I'm going to be right back, okay? Give me just a second. You know what? I'll put some fancy cards in front of you so you guys can kind of marvel over them a bit more. Ooh! All proxies, all beautiful. They look amazing. Marvel at them while I go use the bathroom. I'll be right back, guys. I'm sorry. Give me just a second. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. I have returned. Have you guys sufficiently marveled over my fake cards? Alright, get those out of the way. So, this next card is like one of my favorite lands of all time. So this is called Rishadan Port. And there was a period of time where I was absolutely obsessed with this card. Absolutely obsessed with it. And, I mean, I don't feel that way anymore. Like, usually, so here's what happens to me sometimes. What happens is I learn about certain types of cards, or certain kinds of cards, and I want to own one, and I get obsessive about it. Like, I start, like, reading about it and, like, researching it. Like, I'll read all the lore about a card. I'll read about all the tournament play a card has. I'll read about strategies that people use with the card. I just get really obsessive over it. And then I get so obsessive about it that I finally buy a copy of it. And then after I buy a copy, that obsession goes away. I've done this with a few cards. Like, for example, I think I, a while ago, told you guys about when I acquired my Batterskull. I felt the same way. That was one of those cards where, like, I felt really obsessive over. And then I finally, like, found a copy that I could afford, and I bought it and added it to my collection. And I was like, okay, the feeling of obsessiveness is gone. Like, I don't feel obsessed about Batterskull anymore because I actually own it. So, Rishadan Port is one of those cards that I got really obsessed with. And mind you, I bought this a long time ago, but I definitely remember feeling very obsessed about it. This was way back, like years ago, like probably back as far as maybe, like, I don't know, 2012 or 2013 when I had a hardcore obsession with this card. And I finally bought one, which is the version that you're seeing right in front of you. Um, so Rishadan Port, I'll explain this card. So this card's absolutely spectacular. It's obscenely powerful too. So Rishadan Port, if I can get it to focus, is a non-basic land that says add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, pay 1, tap Rishadan Port, tap target land. So this card is way strong. Like, it's so, like, this card is like I've had lots of descriptions for it. This card is like a counter spell that cannot be stopped. So, like, it can stop, it can tap down, like, really important lands that do really big effects. Like, it can tap down a Library of Alexandria before a Library of Alexandria can draw a card. It can also, like, force an opponent to not be able to use certain colors. So, like, let's say, like, your opponent is, like, running, like, a 3-color deck, and they have, like, 2 islands and, like, 3 swamps and 1 mountain, you know? You can use Rishadan Port to tap down the one red mountain, and then they don't have access to red spells, which could impact the entire game. So, like, and the thing is like some people will say, well, like, you have to tap down, like, a land and also the Rishadan Port to only take away 1 land from your opponent. And it's like, well, the thing is that the secret to the Rishadan Port is that when you use it, you need to ask yourself whether you're far enough ahead to stop your opponent from getting to your level. And that's the trick to it, is that, like, if you are on, like, the same level or below your opponent in board presence or card advantage or whatever, you should not be using Rishadan Port. But if you are ahead of your opponent and you can comfortably get yourself ahead of your opponent, then you can use the Rishadan Port to push them further back. And, like, that's what makes this card strong, is that you need to be playing it with the intention that you're ahead of your opponent just enough that you can take away their resources. Even if it drains you of your resources, you can take your resources away from your opponent, and that puts them further behind than it would be to put you behind by using 2 lands to do so. And I know that sounds really complicated and kind of weird, but it makes a major impact. Like, I've seen people, like, hate this card. Absolutely hate this card. I've played multiple cube games where this land comes down, and it's just taking away, like, for example, like I told you, like, about the double lands, like the Ravnica double lands that produce 2. Like, you can tap down one of those lands with the Rishadan Port, and your opponent feels it. It hurts when you tap down, like, a double land with Rishadan Port. Like, people do not like that, and it's great. It's awesome. So, this card is obscenely strong. It's so strong. And I also love, like, first of all, ignoring, like, the overall power level of this card, which is very strong. If you don't understand the power level, like, oh, by the way, play with this card. Play with it, and you'll understand how truly powerful this card is. The other thing is the art on this card is absolutely beautiful. Like, they recently reprinted Rishiden Port with new art, and I think the new art is really ugly, but this is the old school art from the original print style. And this is not an original print, obviously, because of the gold border, but it still has the look and appeal that the original version has. And the art is really beautiful. It's really colorful. It looks like a colorful pirate town, which is what it's supposed to be. And I also love the flavor text, which says, Rashada is the gateway to free trade, but the key will cost you. And I like that, because the flavor of that goes, it holds true for the opponent as well as yourself, because you have to put yourself at a mana disadvantage to really utilize it. But this land it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Love that card. And like I said, I had an obsession with it, and I had to buy myself a copy of it to end that obsession. But I've played with it plenty of times, and I absolutely love the card. Chris Gott says, sounds like a lot like wanting to sleep with a girl. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To be honest, like, there are times where some of my Magic card obsessions seem more obsessive than, like, trying to hook up with a girl, which is kind of weird. Like, you know, so, I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Not to say that I haven't gotten very intense with being attracted to certain ladies, but I can definitely say that, I don't know, it's kind of different when it comes to Magic cards. And, like, for me, like, it's not like I get obsessive with all kinds of Magic cards. There's only a select few that I've been obsessive with. Like I said, Rishiden Port was a card I was really obsessed with. Batterskull was a card I was really obsessed with. And, like, there are some other cards that I really want in my collection, but I don't feel obsessive about them, you know? Like, for example, like, I really want to get, like, a Yawgmoth Thran Physician, but I don't feel obsessive about it. Like, I'm not in, like, a state of mind where it's, like, for, like, a day or two straight, I can't stop thinking about the card. And that's happened to me with cards. Like I said, Batterskull and Rishiden Port were both cards where I was, like, that's not weird at all. Magic is greater than pussy. Thank you, Chris Gott. Someone understands me, and his name is Chris Gott. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. There are just some cards that, like, I can't, like, stop thinking about sometimes. And there's only been a few that are like that. I'm trying to think of two others besides Rishiden Port and Batterskull. I'm trying to think really hard, but it's not coming to mind. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll think about it later, but Rishiden Port and Batterskull are the two cards I can really think of where I was, like, thinking about them for days at a time until I got my hands on them. So the next card is Dust Bowl. So, Dust Bowl is also from Mercadian Masks. This one is legit. Like, the Rishiden Port is, like, a special print, but this is a real Dust Bowl. It says, add 1 generic mana, colorless mana to your mana pool. Pay 3, tap it, sacrifice a land, destroy target non-basic land. This card is pretty darn good. It's a reoccurring Stone Rain, is what I tell people. It's like a colorless reoccurring Stone Rain, which is really nice. But you have to sacrifice lands to do it. But a lot of the time when you really, really need to blow up a land that, like, is super impacting the board, like, being willing to sacrifice a land in order to, you know, shoot off a Dust Bowl, is usually a really good feeling. Now, I will say that Dust Bowl in the cube maybe goes off once, maybe twice if you're lucky. People, like, use it to get rid of, like, for example, like, maybe somebody's playing a Tabernacle. Dust Bowl will get rid of Tabernacle, you know? Maybe you need to get rid of Library of Alexandria. Like, Dust Bowl will blow up Library of Alexandria. Like, you know, but people will, like, use it once or twice and then never use it again. So, which is good. I think that's good. Because you would think, like, oh, it's recurring land destruction. That's a major problem. And it's like, well, you would be surprised. It's not actually that major of a problem. It usually gets rid of the big threats and then does nothing for the rest of the game, which is good. That's exactly how it should work. Next is Field of Ruin from Ixalan. This card's pretty important. This is a really important land. I love this card when they actually printed it in Ixalan, and it is so strong that it has made it into the cube. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about this land is that um, it says so. It makes generic mana, pay 2, sacrifice Field of Ruin, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches his or her library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. So, when I played that game with my friend and his brother a while ago, I actually had this land out, and I used it to blow something up. And it was really interesting because of the clause that says each player. So, like, I used this, blew up a land that was making a problem, and all three of us got to search for a basic land and put it into play tapped. Um, Actually, no, it doesn't even come into play tapped. It just comes into play. So, which is really strong for, like, everybody. And it's really weird. It's like it blows up a threat and then mana fixes everybody, which is really interesting. Um, this card does have as land destruction as well as mana fixing at the same time. This card's really good. Like, for Ixalan, it's really good, and it's really good in cubes. So, I mean, these cards, I don't think these are really that expensive. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend getting copies of this card and playing with it, whether it's in a cube or anything else. This land is really, really strong. Um, Next is a foil Ghost Quarter. I have owned this card for a long time. A long time ago, I opened up a booster box of Dissension, and I cracked this foil Ghost Quarter in that box of Dissension. I like this card a lot. It's very strong land destruction. Tap it, sacrifice it, destroy target land. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card and puts it into play, then shuffle his or her library. So this doesn't have the same feeling as Field of Ruin in the sense that like everybody gets to search for a land, but the ability doesn't cost any mana because Field of Ruin costs 2 generic mana to be able to use. So this one, you can just do it immediately. And it also gets rid of a major threat while replacing that major threat with a basic land. So it's a good land. It's really strong. I think they reprinted it in Innistrad. So, I mean, I want to say that this is probably not a very expensive card. I feel like the foils might be expensive, but I don't actually know. I just got lucky and cracked this in a booster pack, which is, kind of cool and makes it feel neater that it's a foil and all that. So I really like that card a lot. Next is I believe this is, I can probably figure out, 95. So I believe this is a 4th edition. I think Bo Falcon was telling me 1995 is 4th edition and 1997 is 5th edition. So I believe this is a 4th edition strip mine. And it's legit. I mean, I don't think that people make proxies of strip mines because they're really easy to get, because I think they're like banned and everything or something like that. So this is a really, so it's 4th edition. Bo Falcon confirmed it. So it's a 4th edition strip mine, and if you're playing cube, definitely get a strip mine. It's the pinnacle of all land destruction, so definitely get your hands on one of these. And I don't think they're very expensive. Like, this is a 4th edition, it's pretty cheap. I mean, I bought this a long, long time ago, but, and I own, I think 4 of them total, and they're all 4th edition. And, I bought them a long time ago, so I don't know. If I remember correctly, I bought, each one for, $1 or something like that. They were just practically, they weren't giving them away, but they were very, very cheap. Hopefully they still are cheap. I don't remember. But, yeah, if you build a cube, put a strip mine in your cube. It's just as useful as all the other land destruction I showed you guys, and land destruction is really important. So, strip mine's a little more painful than the other ones because you don't have to pay anything. There's no downside to it, and it can blow up regular land. It can blow up basic lands or non-basic lands. lands. I would really like you to focus. There we go. So it can destroy any kind of land, which is what makes it so good. So highly recommend using it. So now we're moving into a bunch of lands that produce multiple colors, like all colors. So this is a Transguild Promenade from Return to Ravnica. This card is very useful. Now, like, a lot of people would say, like, oh, those are the not very strong multicolored lands. But the thing is that lands that make multiple colors with negotiable drawbacks are really good. Like, really good. Like, I told you guys once again about the land that required you to only use your mana on creatures. The requirement to only use it on creatures was way too constricting. Like, people had a rough time using it. But these lands in particular are actually really good. They come into play tapped, which is a downside, and you have to pay a mana in order to let them enter the battlefield without sacrificing them, which is kind of a downside. And that might seem kind of crappy, but you'd be surprised how good these lands are in the cube. They're actually really, really strong. In fact, I've seen people do this multiple times, including myself, is you're on the first turn. You play like a Mox Emerald, and then you tap your Mox Emerald to put a Transguild Promenade into play tapped. And that actually feels all right. Like, you'd be very surprised that that feels pretty good. Because that means that next turn, you're going to have access to 2 mana, and one of those 2 mana is going to be a mana of any color. And then that's not even including the next land you're going to play. So, like, playing one of these lands with a cost of it coming into play tapped as well as paying 1 generic mana, it feels pretty good. Like, it does. It feels pretty nice. Like, I wouldn't, shit talk it, because I've seen multiple people use these lands to great effect. And I don't think anybody's felt bad about it before. Even when I've played them, I've never felt bad about it. So, I mean, since they are the same card, I'm just going to go ahead and line this one up so we can skip it. The other one is Rupture Spire. And it's literally the exact same card as Transguild Promenade. They're just basically the exact same card. They do exactly the same thing. The only difference is that they have different names and they have different art. This is the better art, in my opinion. I think that the Rupture Spire looks way cooler than the Transguild Promenade. I just like the idea of, like, the desolate land and then the spire just jutting out of the desolate land. Like, it looks cool. I like it. So, yeah, these lands are very good. They're very good. And they're cheap. They're easy to get your hands on and throw them into a cube. They rock. They really do. So the next one is Gemstone Mine. I own, I think 4 or 5 copies of this card, but this is the only one in the cube because the cube is singleton. This was a reprint for the special Time Spiral inclusion. So it's got the little tiny purple hourglass. I don't know if you guys can see that. Come on. God, my camera's having a really rough time with this one. Come on. Put it right there. Right there. Oh, so close. Come on, dude. It's like it does not want to read this one card. Okay. Come on. And see, what really annoys me is I bought this camera for focusing purposes. Ugh. Alright, so I'm just going to read it because it's fighting me the whole way. So, it says, Gemstone Mine comes into play with 3 mining counters on it. Tap it, remove a mining counter from Gemstone Mine, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If there are no mining counters on Gemstone Mine, sacrifice it. This land is really good. Like, really, really good. And the main thing that makes it so good is that, like, eventually it'll run out of counters, obviously, and then you'll have to destroy it. But this card's amazing because it comes into play untapped. And you can make mana of any color the moment it comes into play. It's so strong. Like, just that one fact that it can come out and then immediately be used and make mana of any color is what pushes this land over the top. Makes it so, so strong. definitely play with this card. And it's been reprinted, I think, like 2 or 3 times, so I want to believe that it's not expensive. I could be wrong. Because I own like 4 or 5 copies of it, I've never bothered to check the price because I don't need any of it. So I don't know if it's gone up in price since a long time ago, but it should be pretty cheap. Highly recommend it. Really good in all sorts of different kind of things. So the next one is Lotus Veil. Yeah, it's a Lotus Veil. I like this card a lot. So people probably know that I've mentioned a couple times I collect lotuses, or I try to anyways, as best as I can. So I got my hands on this like I don't know, like half a year ago, I think, and I did it because I've owned the I showed you guys the one where it like makes 4 generic mana after you blow up 2 untapped lands. So I bought this to kind of like coincide with it, like not coincide, to kind of like work together with it because I was like, well, if I have one, I gotta own the other, you know? So that was the main reason I bought this, but also the fact that it's a Lotus card and I like Lotuses. So that's another reason why I bought it. So it basically has like the same stipulations where it says if it comes into play, you must sacrifice 2 untapped lands or you bury the Lotus Veil. You may tap it and add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool. It's very strong. And I was talking about the other card, and I said it's really interesting because, like, I will always play, like the other one, Scorched Ruins, that's what it was called. I always play with Scorched Ruins, but my other friends don't like it, and they don't use it. However, those other friends of mine that don't use Scorched Ruins, they use Lotus Veil. Now, I use Scorched Ruins or Lotus Veil, but my friends only use Lotus Veil. They usually skip Scorched Ruins, and I think that's really interesting. And I mean, it's really interesting because I remember asking my best friend about it, and he said, well, I like the Lotus Veil because it makes 3 mana of, one color, whereas the other one makes 4 mana of generic. And it's like I don't know. It's really weird because like I can see the value in both of them, but my best friend only sees the value in Lotus Veil because it makes colored mana rather than colorless mana. And I don't know. I don't know how his brain processes on that. But I think it's really interesting. And I'm sure it says something about him, but I don't really know. Like, it would be kind of hard for me to try and figure out like what it is that makes one of the 2 cards more attractive to certain people. Like, because I feel like that if I have a friend who likes this version because it makes colored mana, then there's probably somebody out there who likes the other one better because it makes more mana rather than a colored mana. So I don't know. I don't really know. It's very interesting, and I like this card a lot. It's very strong. Like I said, with Scorched Ruins or Lotus Veil, I always play both. That's just how I roll. Very good card. The next one is, and the last one actually, this is the last of my cards. This is a City of Brass. And I actually own a real City of Brass. I think it's like, I can't remember where it's printed. It's got a white border, so it's either revised or like 4th edition or something like that. I can't actually remember, but this one is a Arabian Nights proxy, so it's a fake card. But this land is very strong, so it comes into play untapped, which is a major deal, and then you can tap it for a mana of any color, and it'll deal 1 damage to you. Now, the dealing 1 damage is like the downside, but who cares? Like, a lot of the time taking a couple of damage from a City of Brass in order to get the color you need to get ahead is almost always worth it. I don't think I've ever seen it be a downside. It never feels like a downside. So, City of Brass is a card I'd really recommend in Cube and just about anything else. It's very, very strong. Makes mana of any color with pretty much no cost to do so. Comes into play untapped. Highly recommend it. Feels awesome to play it. you know, it's a good it's a good card. It's really strong. It gets you to where you need to be quicker because you can put it on the first turn and immediately use it for mana of any color, which is great. So that's all the non-basic lands. Wow, it's 10 minutes until my 2 hour mark. So I actually did utilize all of the time I have to go through all that stuff, which kind of surprised me because I kind of went through some stuff really quickly on purpose because some of them were cycles. But then again, also I was kind of hanging out with you guys a little bit more. Like I was kind of like talking to you guys about cards and telling some stories here and there, and it was a lot of fun. So, you know, I had fun. So this is in fact the final cube video. I have done all the colors. I've done all the lands. I've kind of, talked about everything in the cube. I've explained the rules a lot. Like, I don't know if there's really much of anything else that I can go over about the rules. Maybe someday what I'll do is I kind of had this idea thinking about it that maybe one day I'll do a video where I talk about my cube, but it's like 10 or 15 minutes long. And it's just talking about like how I play cube and like some of the rules, and then that's it. Like it doesn't go over all the cards and stuff like that. So maybe I'll do that someday, but that's not something I, am planning to do really soon or anything. I was gonna bring out the basic lands and kind of show them off real quick, but I feel like that's kind of pointless because, like, I mean, I don't know. They're all just basic lands. Like, they're full art basic lands, and there's some foil lands and stuff like that. But other than that, it's not. I'll keep this out just to kind of have something on the screen. But it's not. Like, there's nothing super spectacular about my basic lands other than, they're full art or foils. I mean, I have like Zendikar lands, I have unstable lands, I have some old Ice Age lands in there, various different foils from multiple different sets. Like, I think I have some old Time Spiral foils and things like that. But like I said, it's not really worth like pulling out and showing them off or anything like that. Like, I mean, I feel like you guys can imagine them pretty well. But yeah, I really had a good time, messing around with the cube, and I'm still debating whether or not I want to do a stream where I get to actually play my cube with somebody. It's just I've kind of like worried multiple times. Like I've thought about like I don't know how my friends would feel with like cameras on them and stuff like that, because some of them are a little shy or some of them don't want to do it. And then on top of that, I'm also not sure if like the content would be stimulating. Because, like, I mean, I'd probably run it through, like, this kind of camera, maybe, like, zoomed out a bit more or something like that, so you guys can see, like, a battlefield. And then maybe, like, zoom in on certain cards, like, maybe bring them up to the camera, like, really close so you guys could see them before putting them back down on the battlefield. I'm just not sure about it. There's a lot of stuff to kind of consider when thinking about trying to record a cube match. So I might do it in the future, but I'm very iffy on it. We'll see. I mean, I guess maybe if I had if you guys really wanted to see that, then maybe. But I'd also kind of have to I don't know how, like I said this before, I don't know how my friends would feel on camera. And sometimes me and my friends so when me and my friends play cube, we're drinking, we're smoking, we're having a good time. We're saying off-colored commentary, and we're very crude with each other and stuff like that. And I'm just not 100% sure how well that would go over with an audience, especially because my one of my friends would be like, oh well, I'm gonna go hit my vape pen real quick, and a lot of the time we would just sit here playing our game, and he'd be hitting the vape pen or whatever, and I just don't know how well that would go over on a live stream video. So that's something I've also been thinking. And like I said, sometimes we're drinking. So we'll be drinking and we'll be being silly and making, off-color plays and commentary while drinking. And I mean, I know I can manage myself because I've done, I've been drinking with Cinder while we do, Minecraft and stuff like that. And I know I can control myself. I just, obviously I can't control my friends, and I don't know how, like, what they would do or what they would say and things like that. So I'm just not sure yet. But that might be something I might do in the future. So it's possible. I don't know. Christopher Gott says off color is best color. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I I have a very crude sense of humor, but at the same time, like, even though I have like a very crude sense of humor, and like I like to troll and things like that and give people a bad time, and like I feel like you guys can see that really well when I'm streaming with Cinder. I love giving Cinder a hard time when we're streaming together. It's my favorite thing to do. His reactions to how I treat him when we're streaming together are the best. I love it. So that's why I do that, because he just reacts to it really well, and it's a lot of fun streaming with him. So I mean, that's the kind of sense of humor I have, and I just don't know. Like my friends also can be pretty extreme too, but like I have a tendency to kind of like tastefully censor myself, I guess. Like I'm not censoring myself in like, oh, no cursing, or like no, sex talk or whatever. But like I kind of like am I'm able to kind of censor and filter myself of what's tasteful and what's not. And I'm not always 100% sure if my friends are capable of doing that. So it's kind of like hard for me to want to like bring them on camera where we're, uncensored and stuff like that. So we'll see. I definitely, like, one of my best friends is the guy who I play Cube with the most is, like, he's pretty good at, like, being pretty tasteful and filtering himself really well and still being really funny. But I'm just not sure yet, so I don't really know. Because, like, I will admit there are times where we can say some things that are, like, super inappropriate. Like, really, like, a point of where, like, we would say something that's too inappropriate for, like, YouTube. Like, not just saying the F word, just saying something that's just really, like, we would find it funny, but a large audience would not find it funny. So we have to be, like, kind of careful with that kind of stuff. To kind of even promote that further, I'm like a big fan of like gangster rap. So, and my best friends, like a lot of my really close friends, are also really into gangster rap. And you might not even expect that of me. Like, there's lots of people who would like. There have been times where I play gangster rap, and somebody who's not heard me, play it before would like hear me playing and be like, "You're into this music?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Never would have expected it." So, we listen to music like that and stuff like that. So that kind of gives you an idea also of sometimes like where our sense of humor can go. So we just try to be really careful about that. And I don't want to accidentally bring that, to the YouTube or my community and get myself in any kind of weird trouble or misinterpreted trouble or whatever. So it's just, we just like to have a good time, and sometimes our good time can get a little weird. So, it's whatever. Uh, so I had a really good time, guys. I think I got to wrap it up. I've got like about maybe 2 minutes left to hang out with you guys before I hit my mark. Um, I'm thinking I don't know if I'm going to be doing a stream tomorrow. So I love New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is like my favorite holiday of the year, and I always try to go out and have a great time when I celebrate New Year's Eve. So I'm not sure if I'll stream tomorrow. We'll see. It's a maybe kind of thing. Um, I was also debating whether or not I want to do something else later tonight. I'm not sure. I'll probably see what Cinder Shadow is up to tonight and see if maybe he'll be wanting to do something like a Minecraft stream. I know he was streaming Minecraft last night. I felt bad that I missed it. I came home last night. I worked my ass off at work, and I was so tired. And I came in, and I basically like turned something on YouTube, and then passed out on my couch. And I missed Mike's stream, and I missed Cinder Shadow's stream, and I kind of felt bad about it, but it's whatever. So, but yeah, so if he is wanting to do some Minecraft tonight, then if he's interested in it, then maybe I'll do a Minecraft stream tonight just for, shits and giggles. But I might do something else. I don't know. So it's whatever. We'll figure it out. I'll be sure to kind of hit up the Discord, let some people know that if I'm doing another stream tonight. Just I don't know. I feel really wanting. It was these last few work days that make me really like. Work was really hard these last 3 days, and all I could think about was my days off where I can come and stream and do all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm feeling really invigorated, and I really want to do more streams. So maybe I'll do something tonight. We'll see. So anyways, I'm sorry. I keep going on in tangents. I had a great time, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and going over my cube. I'm glad you guys got to see the entirety of my cube as it is. It'll probably expand in the future, but I'm not likely to bring it back on stream again. Unless we're playing or something like that. And thank you so much for being here. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And I'll see you guys next time. Follow your dreams, guys. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Bo Falcon, for bringing me something. If you're going to bring me something, I appreciate it. Love you, dude. Chris, Bo, all you guys that were in here tonight, love you guys. You guys rock. Good night, guys.